because let me tell you what the purpose of the Libertarian Party is. It isn't to support Republicans. Well, hello, everyone. How are you doing? I've decided I'm just going to insert little weird clips that I find in between the pre-intro and the intro, or whatever you want to call it. So again, we're going to be talking with Jake Porter. You can consider this part 2, I suppose, of the Fear and Loathing on the LNC series. Last time we talked about freedom calls and the, let's call a spade, the embezzlement of Angela McArdle from the Libertarian Party. But a lot of people focus just on that. And there's more. Was it the ShamWow guy go? And there's more. What do you get if you order it now? You get it sooner than if you order it later. I answered Dave Davis's question when I have Jake on. Sorry, it's my total distraction. I blended the name. So there were things that were going on before then, and the LNC should have taken action on those. What's funny is that, we'll see if you agree at the end, that Freedom Calls was actually, it was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back, but that camel was already limping along. Like, this just became so bad that even cronies on the LNC couldn't ignore it. So that's what we're going to talk about now. Things that I think are actually worse than the Freedom Calls thing. Anyway, also, we're going to again have a little bit of an after show. I'll talk about that with Jake, but I want to let people know, because they got a little bit confused last time. We're not immediately going to a live where you can sign on to Patreon and it just continues. We're recording something, and then I put it up on Patreon after the fact. Because this is a work night, it probably will not go up on Patreon until tomorrow, but we'll talk about that. Now, if I set everything up right, yes.
It worked.
Okay, it worked. So the roadmap may change, but so far what we're intending upon talking about it is what, and I don't know if you agree with me that these things are actually worse than freedom calls.
Much worse than Freedom Calls. It would, yeah.
So
should have been a big scandal.
Right, and it wasn't. So we're talking about mainly, actually it's 3 things. You've got the rescue the Republicans, the Republic, the swing vote strategist, and the Libertarian Unity PAC. Now, so far, what we're intending upon talking about in the after show, and in order, I'm going to be hiding you for a second here, not hiding you, but I need to bring something up so that people know you're going to be behind this for a second. Again, you can subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter at Karen Ann Harlow. So last time I didn't ask Jake to give his socials. We'll ask him to do that this time. But if you want to see the after show and to generally support me, you can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I would super, super appreciate it. And also super chats certainly do matter, as do super thanks after the fact. Now let me close that. Will you give your Twitter now, and I'll ask you of it later in case people wish to follow you?
It is Jake D. Porter.
Okay, so it's Jake, then it's just the letter D, and then Portr. Okay, I always forget to do that because I don't have guests on on very often. And so what we're planning on talking about in the after show, at least so far, is one of the main characters. We actually can't, this person, we can't accuse them of having main character syndrome because they actually are a main character in this drama, is Hector Roos. And he's announced that he's going to be doing a series on his attempting to foist upon us Mr. Brainworm. And we're going to go over his introductory Substack article that plots the roadmap ahead, because there's some really interesting things in that. So if y'all would like to hear about that, please join us for the after show. All right, this is going to be complex. Which one give me, God, I hate when I get you. Which one do you wish to start with?
Well, I think we should probably start with the Unity Pack.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because it actually was somewhat disclosed. There wasn't much of an attempt to conceal who created that. So to back up, the Libertarian Party has this joint fundraising committee with Robert Kennedy Jr. In that, other organizations and state parties are allowed to be part of the joint fundraiser, and they get a certain percentage of it that they can keep for themselves. They have to send a certain percentage back to the national party, but they get to keep, I think it's like 10% or something. So Angela McArdle, after the joint fundraising committee has been created, establishes the Libertarian Unity Pack. The Libertarian Unity Pack was actually, I believe, how I found the swing vote strategist, but that's a story for a little bit later on. So with this, now she is raising money for Kennedy, an opponent of the Libertarian Party, and is now bringing money to her new organization that she has just founded after creating this. This is a new organization. So after establishing the Kennedy Victory Fund, she's now created a new organization that moves money to this, from the Kennedy Victory Fund over to her new organization. Now, where this becomes really controversial is that, yes, it appears she did disclose it, I believe, to the LNC, but she tried to force this Kennedy Victory Fund, this joint fundraising committee, on the party. Something that she later on would personally benefit from it by having this organization get the funds that would keep it going. That's a conflict of interest. Whether it's disclosed or not, it's a conflict of interest. Particularly, we're not talking about, her having this with Chase Oliver, the Libertarian presidential nominee. We're talking about her having this for an opposing candidate. An opposing candidate who later on dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump, so not even an independent candidate at that point. And then this joint fundraising committee put out ads in support of Trump. Additionally, this Libertarian Unity Pack that she created put out a pretty pro-Trump advertisement right before the election, using the words Libertarian and Unity. Second, we do not believe there can be unity with Donald Trump or the Republicans, and it's a stupid concept.
Okay, so what's really interesting about this? So yes, allegedly, first, I think some people might be a bit confused, because I would be. The whole idea of joint fundraising and all of that was something extremely new to me. So basically, if this sounds like a money laundering scheme, yeah, it really does sound like a money laundering scheme. I'm not saying it technically, like, under the legal definition of money laundering is, but if you're just like a lay person who's like, it definitely will give you the side eye. So under campaign finance regulations, and I know the Libertarian these shouldn't exist, whatever. We choose to be a political party. We expect the other parties to follow the rules. These are rules we voluntarily submitted under. And some people, if you want to take that route, then you could say the fact that we're forcing the government to print the name of a libertarian on a ballot that the ink is force funded for. Well, that's fine. There are anarchists who have that view, and I respect it. But once you've entered the political process, I'm sorry, the the FEC campaign limits and stuff like that, we can work peacefully to abolish them. But the fact is, you voluntarily submitted yourself to that in trying to participate in the political process to bring about freedom. Anyway, that's a whole other debate. But there are certain limits. And as a national committee, you enjoy certain benefits. I'm not going to say they're directly from the government, but it is a certain status that you have. You're a national political party. It grants you entrance into forums and news and gives you kind of credibility that you would not otherwise have. So there is a benefit by being a political party and engaging in the political process. And a national committee has certain limits, campaign finance limits. And I might be explaining this poorly, and you could always jump in because, like, there's a reason why I'm never a treasurer. Though I used to be a treasurer of a statewide organization, which I'm just losing that ability as I'm getting older, because now that is a terrifying idea to me, that there was once this Christian organization that I was the state treasurer for. Holy shit. Anyway, that was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But if with joint fundraising, you're allowed to team up with, under certain conditions, and we're not going to get into those conditions. That's a discussion for another day. Candidates or candidate committees, and in this case, it would be Team Kennedy, where the national committee like lends its donation limits to this outside committee so that their donors can give more than they would be able to give if they only gave to, say, Team Kennedy. It's very rough. So it's like, let's just do it as between me and Jake. So there's a certain law where you couldn't give anything more to Jake than just say $5. But there was like kind of a loophole, a legal loophole, whatever. If you gave me $100 that you intended for Jake, but I have lesser legal requirements, I take a 10% finder's fee, and then I give $90 to Jake, and you just got to give him $85 more than you originally could, and I got to keep $10. Yes, that does kind of sound like a money laundering scheme. Again, whether or not you think money laundering should be legal or not, that's just the way it is. And these things stack. So if more organizations join the cabal, they also lend their limits so that people can give even more, and they get to keep a cut of it. Actually, it sounds like a combination of an MLM and a money laundering scheme. So the joint fundraising committee got rammed through executive committee. It was completely pushed by Angela, and she actually described it in this way. We could look up on Lpedia the way that she described it. Actually, I'm going to try to find that language, because while I'm doing that, would you add anything to that description, or was that a decent description?
Yeah, joint fundraising committees are extremely confusing just by their very nature. That's what happens when politicians think they're doing good and trying to get the money out of politics. Well, they don't get money out of politics. They just make a really convoluted system. They think, oh, we're going to lower the contribution limits, but then some other politicians are going to create this workaround here. And so now you've still got the money in politics that you had from the very beginning, except now it's really weird and really hard to figure out. And so now you've got big donors that can just write one check and then bypass all the regulations that they've put in place.
Okay, so I'm going
complete failure.
Yeah, so I'm going to read the way Angela sold it to the executive committee. She said, Mr. Kennedy's campaign is an independent campaign, and it is not tied to a national political party. A joint fundraising committee is a special fundraising committee authorized by the FEC where an individual donor can donate the maximum amount that's allowable to a national political party, which I believe is $42,300. As an independent candidate, Mr. Kennedy is not associated with a campaign. So he's maxed out for his donors basically at the individual contribution level. Where I typed this out, I mistyped it. No, letter, and then I put ... level. So I did this as a word for word transcription, apparently. This would allow Kennedy supporters to donate to their candidate of choice at a larger level in connection with the Libertarian Party. So we would basically have to set up a special joint fundraising committee and a dedicated bank account, which could also be basically just another account with one of our banks, and his supporters can donate there, and they basically get to borrow our contribution limits. And what we would do is we would square up with him at the end of every month, every so often, and we would keep 10% of what is donated to that campaign, and 90% of the remaining amount, would go back to his campaign. So I think I described it in layman's terms fairly well, and it is very convoluted. And she didn't get into what happens when state parties join us, but you could just have this big conglomerate. But what it comes down to is 90% goes to the Kennedy campaign. So they were using our fundraising limits, which party activists have worked for. We've maintained our good standing and everything with the FEC. And no one is going to tell me ever that was intended so that we would fundraise for an opposing candidate. And as I've said before, and now I could say it because people were pretending to be all offended like they don't understand metaphor. It was political whoring. Obviously, I don't mean literally having sex. And my position was going to be 10%. If we're going to be a whore, let's at least be an expensive one. 10% is pretty damn cheap for us to drop our drawers to the brainworm. But in any event, so yeah, Hody Jones, exactly. So reading it makes it very stark. So Hody says, oh gosh, damn it. So we were the middleman siphoning money to Kennedy. Yes.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. The guy who got the contract for Alligator Alcatraz donated money to Trump PACs and also the Kennedy Victory Fund.
So we enabled,
wanted to be on the Kennedy Center, which Trump appoints. What do they do right before they get their appointment? They donate money through the Kennedy Victory Fund. What does this look like? Why would people be donating to the Kennedy Victory Fund who don't support Kennedy after the damned election? I'm not going to say what it looks like, but I think you can put two and two together and figure it out.
Yes, and it's using the limits, and our reputation. Some people might think we don't have a reputation, but whatever it might be, everything we activists going on back have worked for to siphon money to Kennedy to get around contribution limits. Now, we could say all we want that we don't think there should be contribution limits. Fine. We also don't think heroin should be illegal. That doesn't mean the Libertarian Party should start selling heroin. I mean, there are still some things you don't do, and you don't lend our contribution limits. It's a complete fraud upon the party as far as I'm concerned. Anyway.
And sadly, there was at least one member who said the reason we did this is because the party was going broke, one national committee member. And so maybe if the party would have sold heroin, it would have done better. I don't know. But it brings up that question. I think there should be, a test that you always ask. Is it legal? Is it ethical? Does it help the organization, or does it help our mission? And the answer in legality, supposedly they asked Kennedy's attorneys. I don't know. Well, that's not really an unbiased source there. If that's the case, there was no, based on what I've read, no FEC advisory opinion saying that this is good to do. There's the question of, is it ethical? Well, hell no, it's not ethical. And then, does it help fulfill our mission? No, it helps a short-term problem that we should have never got into in the first place. Instead of addressing that problem, we tried to put a giant Band-Aid over it. And when you see companies do this, it's a company that, oh, well, we do roofing. Now we're going to get into lawn care. And they add in all this extra stuff, and then they fell at all of it because they lost their mission. It's the same thing with the Libertarian Party, to put it simply.
Yes, exactly. And I'm thinking of something. I'm not going to name the LNC member that said this because it's just not necessary. They will recognize themselves in the statement. And it was a personal conversation. It wasn't like confidential stuff. We were talking as friends. So don't sue me, Nikayla, because yes, I've been threatened by Steve, and I will not break my NDA. But this was a friendship conversation, just talking about concerns of the direction of the party, public concerns that were voiced about this whole Kennedy thing. And this other LNC member had said, minor parties generally only last 50 years. And it looks like we've had our run, and something like this could kill the party. And, I'm like, I'll always be fighting to my dying breath. And he's was basically like, I gave away the gender, but that doesn't say much because the Libertarian Party is almost all men. If I had said she, that would have really narrowed down the field. Basically, I'd said, well, I'd rather we die a noble death. And I think I understand that, but I'm still fighting to my dying breath for us to get our nobility back because we certainly have sold ourselves. So you got the idea. So this Kennedy Victory Fund was rammed through. And yes, the party was going broke. The party was going broke because of the person who rammed this through. Like, we act like the going broke just came out of the sky like the giant meteor of death that we didn't expect. No, the party was going broke because, and listen, I fully admit that I was part of the takeover, and I've repented the best I can, and I still throw myself on the pyre daily to try to make right my foolish alliances. But I did not see where it was going, because anyone who knows me knows I've always been a firebrand, but I can be naive and trusting and all of that. Yes. Now I lost my train of thought. Uh-oh. I am frozen. Oh, I'm better now. I think I hit something. I forgot where I was even going with that. Remind me. Be out here, Jake.
Oh, let's see now. Now, instead of just getting froze, I think I forgot. But no, when you bring this up, though, that the party is going broke. No, I think a lot of the people didn't. Yeah, the party. A lot of the people didn't want it to go broke. A lot of people, I think, were wanting it to get better, and this was going to be a tough election, no matter who was in charge of the national committee. It was going to be a tough election. I think that because nobody really wanted to, address the elephant, if you will, the Republican elephant in this case in the room, that it allowed people to come in and push this idea of a Kennedy Victory Fund on the party. It kind of gave them what they thought was a way to put out this fire that, yes, they had created and allowed to happen, allowed to burn, but it was kind of a way to, stop the burning. Except it didn't do that, and it probably cost us, well, I can't say that it cost us more donors. We were hemorrhaging donors anyway, but it certainly didn't gain any trust back for the members and the donors. And it also created a really, I think, unethical situation where you have board members doing something that's controversial. You have a PAC for the party, the Mises PAC, that is making money off the Joint Fundraising Committee.
Oh, we haven't even gotten there yet.
We haven't even gotten there yet. And you've got a party chair making money off the Joint Fundraising Committee. You've got a party representative who supports this, I believe voted for it, making money off the Joint Fundraising Committee. And they can, it may be sent to their nonprofit, whatever. They're still personally benefiting from this Joint Fundraising Committee because they're doing something you otherwise couldn't legally do. And so now they have created this incentive to sign the party up to hoard the party out, as you say, for their own benefit. Whether that was the intention or not, I can't say what's in their heart and what they did. I can't, I'm not even going to assume.
Right.
But it
You
creates
can't.
that, right, but it creates that appearance of it, which doesn't make me want to contribute if I think that's what's happened. Certainly
And
doesn't give me
honestly,
confidence in the organization.
and we were going broke. That is where it's going. But we were going broke through actions of the controlling faction, which I had been a part of. That's what I was doing. I was owning up to my own involvement. I'm not going to say in like the financial side, because as you can tell, me and finances aren't my thing. I was handling the secretarial side, but I was a member of that faction. I'm never going to diminish that or try to sidestep that. So it was a problem of their own making. And the fact is, I'm going to use Harry Brown as an example, where he turned away the government matching funds, which the laws on that have changed. It's not the same today as it was then. But he turned down the money and said he made more money in free advertising over the shock and awe of him turning down that money than he would have if he took the money. We may have, he said, look, we're going broke. We've got this offer dangled before us. We perhaps, by saying we're going to refuse and we're going to count on you, the members, who knows what the difference could have been. We've already turned around and had to sell the building. Maybe that should have been done then. Right now, it's just plugging holes. And I am going to quote Princess Leia here, the more tightly you grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. At some point, you just got to, you can't keep doing that. So we have this Kennedy Victory Fund set up. Now, when we say rammed through, we first officially learned about it. Well, no, the first I knew about it was the day before we were going to vote on it. So I think the meeting was July 11th. It might have been the 13th. I get the dates, but I think the meeting was the 11th. That was Freedom Fest week. Allegedly, the Kennedy Victory Fund was presented to Angela on that Tuesday. I think the executive committee meeting was on a Friday, and the day before, Angela notices this. So there was like only a couple days to even digest this information. This isn't something that had been an ongoing discussion. You know, she first noticed it then. And I'm not saying anything confidential here. This all came out in the JC hearings, because I will not say anything confidential. In fact, when it comes to the Kennedy Victory Fund, there's very little until after the JC decision that I even know, because those of you may remember, that's when the huge break with me and Angela came. I was also over Colorado, but at that executive committee meeting where it was rammed through, I had said then and there I was going to be filing a JC appeal. And I also said, due to that, I will not participate in any confidential discussions or executive sessions regarding this, because I want to stand in the shoes of the ordinary member as to how it would look to them. So there may have been confidential email threads after the fact that I wouldn't know about, because I requested to be left out of all of that. So I am standing in the shoes of an ordinary party member. Then what happened is, again, these additional organizations could sign up. So this is where things already you get very, very, they were already unethical with siphoning money to Kennedy. But then back to the Libertarian Unity PAC. So the former chair sets up a PAC that didn't exist before. It isn't like this is a type of organization, unlike the other LNC member, who did have a nonprofit that they set up an adjacent PAC to. So it's an entirely different animal as far as I'm concerned. That might have been a little bit opportunistic on the other LNC members' part, but it's nowhere near like what the chair did. So after the Kennedy Victory Fund, we're just going to say KVF was set up. She sets up this PAC that signs on to the Kennedy Victory Fund and then raises money for them. which they get 90% of the limits of this organization, which is a separate limit, and the LNC, I mean, and that organization keeps 10% of it. I don't even think that, for again, now you can really see I'm not a treasurer. I don't even think the LNC got any cut of that. I think it was 90-10, wasn't it? Yes. So the Libertarian Unity PAC, whatever they raised, 90% went off to Kennedy, and they got to keep 10.
No, 90% went to the LNC. So the LNC did benefit from that.
They didn't get to keep the 90%. They then spent it on behalf of the KVF.
Well, right. So I mean, right. So they spend. I think they spend on coordinated expenses. Is that right? Like his security.
Yeah, but
firm?
it was for the benefit of Kennedy.
Of Kennedy.
Because the LNC was a pass-through. All the money went through the LNC. The ones that were donated directly, again, you could tell I'm not a treasurer here, but we were a pass-through organization. So don't count on me in these finer financial details. But the Libertarian Unity PAC, as well as all of the other organizations that signed up, got to keep, they did make something from it. However, the calculation formulas work out. Just with me, when it comes to numbers, picture that blonde lady who's looking at that meme. That's me. So she forms this PAC. Most of the money goes to benefit Kennedy. And then she gets to keep a certain amount and gets off the top. But then I think also was getting paid by Kennedy, or is that under swing vote strategist? So
that is under swing vote strategist.
Okay. All right. So already, so
but also Rescue the West. There's a few other things that flow in there. And
we've got graphics. And I'm going to put this up here because I agree. CRB says this is wholly unethical unless RFK Jr. won the national nomination. I agree. So now, I know the Special Investigatory Committee said, well, at least with the Libertarian Unity PAC, it was disclosed. The way Angela disclosed it was that the Libertarian Unity PAC is a PAC that she set up in order to make videos for capital L Libertarian candidates. As far as we know, they've made one video, and it was pretty much pro-Trump. Definitely not capital L Libertarian candidates. But merely mentioning on the LNC, merely mentioning something that you're involved with is not a true disclosure under any kind of nonprofit ethics, but also under our policy manual. So when the other LNC member disclosed their PAC, they said in the disclosure, and this PAC is receiving money from the KVF. That is a full disclosure. So the LNC policy manual says when LNC members disclose potential conflicts of interest, or to disclose exactly how it's conflicting. Now, have we been really strict on that? No, because it's usually obvious. So if someone discloses, I'm on the LNC and I'm also the treasurer for the Mr. Jones campaign for blah 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 governor, it's obvious. Like if there becomes an ideological dispute or whatever, the potential conflict is obvious on its face. But saying, oh, I'm just merely going to make videos. No, she needed to disclose that she was making money off of a scheme that she introduced and was promoting. So no, the Special Investigatory Committee was wrong. She did not properly disclose it. She disclosed she had a PAC, but didn't disclose exactly how it conflicted with interests of potentially interests of the Libertarian Party. So how much we can get up some of these. I've got the two reports where I can do a screen share too as well. But let's just move on conceptually. So you got the Libertarian Unity PAC, which made Trump videos, one Trump video, and wasn't properly disclosed. It was partially disclosed upon which the chair made money. Now, when we say the chair made money, we don't mean, because we don't know, because they haven't filed anything with the FEC yet, I don't think.
They filed them late. They've not filed anything this year, so everything is
Okay.
end of last year, and they may not have to file anything right at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, we're not saying, like, let's just pull a number out of the air. We'll look at some concrete numbers, $10,000. I'm just pulling it out of the air. We're not saying that money went directly into Angela's pocket, but it was money that her organization got to use. And the only, how do I even word this? We know as libertarians, I'm going to get a bit Randian here, where Ayn Rand said, like altruism is evil because you don't sacrifice yourself for other people. And the way libertarians will sometimes explain it is that all acts are inherently selfish, even ones that might appear selfless, because when you give the $10 to the homeless person, you are in fact getting something out of it. You feel like a good person, or you're well respected amongst your peers. You've got a reputation as a philanthropist. That might not be money directly in your pocket, but you're benefiting in some way, and that human interactions are based upon mutual benefit, that there's very few things that I do believe there are selfless people in this world, but most of us were not. Let's just be honest. There's something that you're getting out of it, and there's nothing wrong with that. So be it status with the Kennedy campaign, becoming what she thinks is a kingmaker or whatever the hell, she was personally benefiting from this. It wasn't the party benefiting from it. She was getting the benefit from it. There might have been some benefit to the party as well, but she did not disclose her personal benefit. As LNC members, the only benefit they're supposed to get without it being fully disclosed is the prestige and honor that comes from being the chair of the LP. Maybe in the future the chair will be paid, but they're not now. And that doesn't mean you find ways to explicitly use your position like that in order to gain funds.
And this was also something, this was not, we have had joint fundraising committees. I think Gary Johnson had one, Joe Jorgensen, I believe, had one with certain states. This was not Angela McArdle doing something like that and saying, I want to be a part of this for my organization that does ballot access right now for libertarian candidates. Something like that we'd look at. I don't know that I'd have a problem with that, because that's something that's been done before. It's for our own candidate. If she had an organization already established, that wouldn't be such a big deal. This was for an opposing candidate who later on dropped out, and money that went to the Joint Fundraising Committee put ads out with Don Trump Jr. to go out there and hunt with RFK's Falcon, go falconing. And it put that paid for by the Libertarian National Committee right on those advertisements.
Right.
Great branding, wasn't it? And this was the thing that they told us to do. This was the thing they told us we had to do, and we had to vote. You had to vote for right away. And it appears, there's I think probably some disagreement. I've heard rumors that Kennedy needed these funds to be raised fast for something that he had going on. That may be the case, but we're not working for Robert Kennedy. We're not on Robert Kennedy's timeline anyway. Robert Kennedy.
And you're not going to tell me that a Kennedy couldn't have gotten a loan, or that Nicole Shanahan couldn't have. Again, yeah, it's not our problem. Like, sucks to be you, not our problem.
And then ultimately, this money was still being used after the election, and people were donating, and then they were getting pardons by Trump. They were, this looks bad, and then now the party is attached to that forever. Not talking about any potential legal consequences or any of that yet, but the party is just morally attached to that in everyone's eyes, everyone that bothers to look at it.
Okay, so and we will be pulling up some charts if this is going to be a long show. Next is undisclosed financial interest in swing vote strategists. So here's where things get even more squirrely. So you want to lead us through that?
Yeah. So How I found the swing vote strategist. So Angela files the Libertarian Unity PAC with the FEC, right? She lists this address on there. I'm happen to be looking through the Joint Fundraising Committee's filings, and I find something interesting. I see this same address. It just pops up as Austin, Texas, called the Swing Vote Strategist. I thought that's pretty odd for fundraising. Who would call themselves a swing vote strategist? That's kind of an interesting name.
Mm-hmm.
I think that PO box or whatever it was, that or pack and ship mailbox, that seems like an address that's been used before. I look it up and I find out, well, so it says that money is going to the same post office, not a specific box or anything, but the same physical address, the same street address that the Libertarian Unity PAC's getting money to, or the Libertarian Unity PAC used to file. I think that's pretty interesting. And so I started asking questions. Well, what is this swing vote strategist? Who is this? People are asking Angela. We don't get any answers. It just gets ignored. One of the LNC members asks Angela about this, and Angela just responds, must be an error, She refuses to disclose that it's their company they've created. So I have an attorney that contacts me, and despite what Mr. Roos and Mr. Martin have falsely lied about, this is not an anonymous attorney from Texas. This is someone that I know. He's not anonymous, and he is not from Texas. But this attorney is able. So I went through the state of Delaware. To go through the state of Delaware, they do not just hand over this information. You can't go through a third-party processing service to get these documents. An attorney can get the documents. The state of Delaware, you can pay them $20 and not get this information. So he was able to get this information to me that showed that Angela McArdle's domestic partner, who she lives with, has a child with, incorporated the swing vote strategist. This was not disclosed to the National Committee, and the swing vote strategist is getting money, about $4,000 a month, from the Kennedy Victory Fund for fundraising. It was a way to pay Angela, we later on find out through all of the investigations. But anyway, this gets hidden, and at the end of December of last year, I'm able to break the story that this is what happened. And this is ultimately what helped me find the freedom calls that ended Angela's reign as chair.
So I'm looking at the Special Investigatory Committee report. And it's actually, you posted this on December 5th. And the reason why I pulled up my phone, I was like, wait a minute. So what was going on in the first week of December? I was just about to have my JC hearing. You broke the story before then. The LNC was aware of it and still defended them going after me when all of this happened. But it looks like
I hadn't disclosed that it was confirmed her, though. That didn't come until a little bit later on. But it was highly suspicious and should have been asked by more people. Now, I've had some members of the LNC seem to hint to me that, you just didn't have enough evidence. You didn't have anything really against her. This was all Kennedy money. We didn't care. If they would have listened to all the smoke that was around, if they would have listened to what I was trying to yell, fire, there's a fire in the Libertarian Party headquarters, and I just got ignored.
It's funny
and so when they get freedom calls comes out, they said, oh, wow, we had no idea. Well, it's not like she has a pattern of doing these things that I've been telling you about.
Right, exactly. And let's go back even further, and I'm not trying to go look at me, like I'm not trying to do that, because it takes, I hate to say it takes a village, right? I sent my whistleblower email to LNC Council in July, okay? And I started having text messages with Kathy Yanuskavich about my suspicions that, now did I know yet what was happening? Do I still know all that happened? No. But I started texting Kathy, and I said, Kathy, I unfortunately have a nose for these sorts of things. And I go, have I found the fire? No. I go, but there's a lot of smoke. And that's literally like what I said to her. And then after stuff that was going on with Colorado and the Secretary of State, I texted Kathy, It's getting smokier. Actually, no. I sent her a screenshot of the former treasurer from LPCO saying that she was 90% sure that Angela was behind everything in Colorado. Again, allegation, whatever. This is just something that somebody in LPCO said. And I texted that screenshot to Kathy and said, it's getting smokier. And it turns out she was in at Freedom Fest relaying all of this to Angela. So I was getting double crossed. I mean, way back in July. However, the reason why I mentioned Kathy, and Kathy was a dear friend. I loved her like a sister. But the reason this becomes relevant is so on December 5th, you posted, I wonder who operates the Swing Vote Strategist LLC that received $12,000 from Kennedy Victory Fund for fundraising consulting. Then it says LNC members began asking McArdle questions. So my JC hearing, I think, was on December 7th. On December 10th, Yanuskavich messaged McArdle asking if Swing Vote Strategist is Austin's LLC. And Angela replied, and we can show, it's in the report, like this, like an actual screenshot is in the report. So you can't say, like Kathy was making this up after the fact. Angela replied, probably an address error. Now she knew, she was lying through her teeth. She knew damn well this was Austin's LLC, but she lies through her teeth to Kathy and says probably an address error. I will look into it tomorrow because you had disclosed it was the same box that was used by the Libertarian Unity PAC in Austin, Texas. I'll look into it tomorrow. I need a day off. Now, a pattern in practice, as I said, with Angela, whenever she was starting to get boxed into a corner, she would go on about how she was feeling ill and how stressed she was and whatever. And she, like, has publicly said she's got some health issues. Those are legitimate. But the fact is, you choose to be chair of a national political party. And it just seemed to be a pattern. Whenever it started getting hot, it's like, oh, I can't take it. I need to take it.
And like Trump, it's always, a week or 2 weeks, right? You'll have this in a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah. But probably an address error. Now, the funny thing is, see, with Angela, it's not what she says. Because if you want to read that technically, maybe she wasn't technically lying. Oops, Austin wasn't supposed to put that down as the address. Maybe it was an address error. Notice she didn't directly answer Kathy's question. Is this Austin's LLC? With the answer, probably an address error. Isn't that interesting? So she can technically say, well, I didn't lie. He fucked up. He wasn't supposed to put that down as the address.
There was another case of that as well around that same time. So also on December 10th, I filed the brief in favor of reinstating you for the Judicial Committee. And in that brief, I list where all this money has flowed to the, with the Swing Vote Strategist was not in there yet, but all this money has flowed through Kennedy organizations to Angela McArdle's, to her PAC and through the Rescue the West organization. And so I list all this stuff down there. And I filed that with the Judicial Committee to show that there's potential reason for retaliation against you. And
my hearing was on the 14th, so this was before my hearing.
Before this,
so they went forward with all of that, knowing
all this stuff's coming out quick. And in addition to that, Keith Thompson asks a question, I think, in the LNC chat, which I think that one's been deleted now, but it was something, I forget what it was, and Angela responds back, something that he did not say, and it was something on the lines of, I did not take hundreds of thousands of dollars and put that into my, or something along those lines. It was something outrageous that nobody had ever suggested.
She always does a diversion.
It's, I did not bury that body down by the main street off the, it was extra details that added in there so there could be deniability without lying. And so at the time that I disclosed this, it was just $12,000. But the swing vote strategist ended up making something like $32,000 by the time this was all done. Even after the investigatory report came out from the National Committee telling what she had done with freedom calls, she still managed to receive um, about $12,000 from them. They still continued to pay her. The Kennedy people continued to pay her after this. And when I say her, well, we know it's now her, because guess who was sending off the invoices to the Kennedy campaign?
She was.
Angela McArdle from the LP.org email address. Do I have that right? I believe that's correct. I
Well,
believe that's what
there
we
was some from the LP.org one and some from her personal account. And it was funny, on her personal account, she had automatic signature line of LNC chair, which is a big no-no as well. There's a reason why you have an LP account. That's the only one in which you're supposed to be using your title. There are people out there who will tell you back when I was still on the LNC, they would send me LNC questions to my personal email, and I asked them to re-email it to my LP email, because my personal email is my personal email. Party records are party records. So on the 16th, you posted photos from FEC filings showing the statement of organization for the Libertarian Unity PAC is the same as Swing Vote Strategist. Then on the 28th, you did the state of Delaware public record search, which showed that the organizer of Swing Vote Strategist, just like Freedom Calls, funny in Delaware when you live in Texas, and Texas is pretty business friendly, so you can't go you lived in some socialist hellhole that wasn't business friendly, and that's why you went to Delaware. You're doing it to Delaware to try to hide things, is Austin Padgett. So on January 1st, several other board members inquired about the validity of Porter's post. That was probably Keith Thompson. And like it said, McArdle continued to deflect these inquiries, so she never answered Kathy. And then on the 17th, Yanuskavich learned from the LNC's liaison, I never can pronounce that name right, contact coordinator, whatever, with Team Kennedy, that the swing vote strategist was between Team Kennedy and McArdle. So that is interesting. And the Team Kennedy person described McArdle's work as onboarding new state parties, answering questions from state parties, and helping to ensure state parties sent back their percentage to the LNC per the joint fundraising agreement. That's something that she should have been doing as chair. If you're going to be chair of the party and you're going to convince the LNC to sign the party up for this, you've just taken on that additional duty without pay, unless you ask the LNC to approve that you get some kind of payment. You don't do it behind the scenes in this way. So she was finding ways to get a salary. I'm not doubting it was a lot of work. Let me tell you, when I was LNC secretary, on average, I put in 40 hours of work a week. If you average it out, more on some, less than on others. I have no doubt she was doing a lot of work. That's what you signed up for.
Joshua has a comment there. So he wants to be clear. Didn't we say it was the same post office, not the same P.O. box? That is correct. Now, I can use a little bit of logic here to determine that if money is going to the same post office in Austin, Texas, there's not a whole lot of money that's going out of there's quite a bit of money going out of the Kennedy Victory Fund, but not really enough to where that you would have the likelihood of two separate organizations not connected getting money at that same post office. As a matter of fact, I even went as far as to look to see if anyone else had received money at that post office. It's like there's a lot of political organizations. There was an accounting firm, I think, that had also received some money from a political campaign at that post office. So it was not a common thing to have happen. But furthermore, I wasn't accusing at that point. We were asking questions.
Yes.
We were speculating. I thought that's what I had found.
Well, and when we say post office, I'm glad Joshua asked this question because it allows us to be more precise. It was like a mail drop facility. It wasn't United States Post Office. It was like a pack and ship. And Correct. It wasn't like a gigantic pack and ship like Everybody in Austin, Texas used this. It's one of those little hole-in-the-wall ones like all of us see all over the place. So what are the chances that McArdle's Libertarian Unity Pack is using the same pack and ship? So the same street address, not the same box address, as swing vote strategist. But there's no more guessing anymore because 10, 12 days later, you found the formation of the LLC, which was Austin Paget. So it makes perfect sense. And it was like, what, 20 miles from her house or something like that, which was also interesting because I'm sure there was one closer. It was almost like, yeah, I've got enough energy to kind of distance myself from it from a little, but not enough, like, I don't know, bizarre. But anyway, so that was
they were sloppy though, and it did catch them. I was able to put that together.
You never would have been able to put that together, but for that.
Right. Well, also the name.
Well, maybe
I'm
you
be honest
would
with you. Swing vote strategist was so odd, and it was just an odd name for someone to call themselves that, and for fundraising, it just seemed a bit odd. I don't know that I would have. Certainly, having the address there directed me in that direction. But no, I think there's a good chance. I think there's a good chance that we eventually would have found it, but it might have not been until later on. And maybe the Freedom Calls thing never would have been found out, or would have been found out much later on. It could have pushed the timeline way, way, way back, even if we did find it. And more money would have been lost.
And it says during the month, so this would be December, that Porter posted about swing vote strategists, she led some board members to believe that Paget was working for the KVF, which would still be just as bad. I'm sorry, it's your household. But that wasn't even the case. It took over a month to determine that she was being paid for KVF work through the SVS. Now remember, I mean, I'm so grateful for you for finding all of this. But there is an unbroken chain that I started sounding the alarm on in July.
Well,
and
what is also
they started going after me. Yes.
Is that Kathy had said, had conversations, I believe, about potentially, she rejected payment from Kennedy, right?
Yes.
But there was open talk, I think, between her and Angela, the way I'm understanding it, that Angela might be paid. So not only did Angela, Angela tried to post a screenshot trying to show that, but it didn't actually show that Kathy said, take money and don't disclose it, or at least I don't feel like it did. What was odd is that if her and Kathy were talking about this, and that she still lies to Kathy, and she still doesn't want the board to know. Well, why would you not want that to know? It's because, the haters will attack me. Well, that might be part of it. But if the haters don't like it, maybe there's something that needs to be addressed. You should still be clear about it. I don't doubt that she didn't do a lot of work for the Kennedy Victory Fund. It's irrelevant. Why didn't she resign as party chair, go work for this Kennedy Victory Fund?
Yes.
And not voted, not pushed it on through. And then when that happened, said, I think I would like to do this. Okay, it's not good that you sold the party out to Kennedy, but at least you didn't profit from it while you were chair, and use your title as chair to profit from it.
And use the lp.org email to send invoices. So, causing a big overlap between your official role and allegedly this other work that you're doing, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. If you want to go work for another campaign and you're on the LNC, you have to choose. You work for this non-libertarian candidate, unless it's a nonpartisan race, which obviously this wasn't, or you be on the LNC. You can't do both. That's like, you can't be monogamously married and have a mistress. Like, pick one. So, swing vote strategists from October 2024 through March of 2025 was paid $32,000. So you got that on top of the Liberty Unity Pack, which only made one video that we know of. And, they
Freedom
made
Calls, and then Austin Paget before that making money. This is well over $100,000, probably $150,000. Then you've got her Rescue the West organization making money from the Kennedy Victory Fund. You've got the Rescue the West making money from other Kennedy PACs. A Kennedy PAC that the party is paying Angela's neighbor, we find out in this investigatory report. A Kennedy PAC is also paying this neighbor or the neighbor's company. There's just some pretty interesting things in there that at some point we'll get around to discussing more of. Doesn't mean necessarily that they were doing anything wrong, but the idea that there was no coordination between this Kennedy PAC and Team Kennedy, that's pretty laughable. Now, of course, I know very well that everyone does that these days, but
yeah. So now we're getting to Rescue the West. Now, Rescue the West, as you found. Now we're going back even further. Now remember that crap. I wish I could remember the date that I sent my whistleblower email to Oliver, because it was right around this date. Of course, that all had to do with Colorado and my suspicions that she was involved with the whole thing of trying to get Kennedy on the ballot here. But I smelled a rat. Okay, I smelled a big rat. I didn't know where the carcass was yet, but I smelled a big rat. So Rescue the West was incorporated by McArdle as a nonprofit in DC on July 24th, 2024. Man, I could pull up my email to Oliver if I wanted to. It would be funny if that was the exact same day. And that was not disclosed to the LNC. On September 29th, Rescue the West sponsored Rescue the Republic, which had been joked about on the LNC list as Rescue the Republicans. The event was advertised on its website and social media, with Angela being listed as one of the organizers or whatever, using her LNC title. But this was never approved by the LNC. And named speakers were RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and co-founders are listed. She was listed as a co-founder. So some LP and LNC members started raising concerns about this. So we're going back into July. Now, I was on the APRC back then, and an email, and normally APRC discussions would be confidential, but the Special Investigatory Committee report, which the LNC released, has part of the discussion. So they've been released, so I'm allowed to talk about this. I was on the APRC at that time. And there was a rescue, all of these different organizations. The Rescue the Republic event, it was going to be advertised through the LP email. It was the day after Rage Against the War Machine. Rage Against the War Machine was an approved event. But the day after, these two were tied together, was going to be this Rescue the Republicans one. And there was a proposed email that went to APRC. If you guys don't know what APRC is, it's short for Advertising Publication Review Committee. It means all publications of the Libertarian Party got to get approved by a subcommittee for policy manual violations, bylaws violations, platform violations, or quote unquote damaging to the image of the party. I was chair of the APRC at that time. I was, like people like to say, with anyone who's been on APRC with me would know this. Like the Ron Paul of the APRC, only in that I was Dr. No. Like if there was going to be like a no, it'd be from me. I was a pain in the ass, but I think that's what the role of the APRC was, to be a watchdog. So it says, as shown in the email thread below, and we'll read what's in the email thread, it said, Harlos, the chair of the APRC, disapproved of the email due to apparent policy violations and the potential impropriety of sending out the email to LP members. She also asked questions regarding ownership and why the LP's name was being used without approval. This makes it sound like I asked questions after the other people did. No, I was the first one to ask questions because no one else knew yet. APRC was a secret committee. I saw that email come to APRC. The rest of the LNC didn't even know. So here it is. This Rescue the Republic. The email goes to the APRC. The APRC is a disapproval committee, like silence equals consent. It came out. First APRC member was Pat Ford. He approved, like, quickly. I was a little bit later. I said disapproved. Sponsorship never approved. Goes against national divorce, because that was a thing that the Mises Caucus used to say they believed in, and we have a plank in that and whatever. And localization supported by delegates. And Greg Hirsch said disapproved. Adam Heyman approved it and gave some reasons. I don't need to get into that. But then I said, what corporation owns this? Who are its directors? Are they getting paid? How is our name being used without approval? And by this time, there was already an investigatory committee against me, okay, because this was September 11th. And so so by that point, I was in I don't give a fuck mode. So I was like, I understand that this committee doesn't matter because it didn't, the chair is just going to override whatever she wishes. But the LNC has the right to know these things. This domain is anonymous, which is the opposite of transparent. And Angela deflects as usual, said, this isn't going out as is, but none of your questions are appropriate for the APRC. Yes, they most certainly are appropriate for the APRC. And thank you here. We got a couple comments. All super chats get read unless they're like super insulting to somebody. When I mean super insulting, it's not like saying somebody did something wrong. That's perfectly fine. But like if somebody, I don't know. Yeah, I think we all know what's not appropriate to be put on the screen. I'm not saying that anyone has done that. I'm just saying don't be tempted. Like, don't think you're going to throw $100 in there and put down that so-and-so diddles kids and I'm going to put that on the screen. No, I'm not. So we have a super chat from Daniel Donnelly saying, no one will take the LP seriously, least of all libertarians, if McArdle slithers her way into any official leadership position again. Absolutely agreed. I don't think she should be in position in any nonprofit, never mind the Libertarian Party. She's absolutely shown that she does not know how to behave ethically. Or at least I always believe, though, in paths to redemption. I'm not saying necessarily in the LP, but certainly not in any time soon. Let's put it that way. Jason, this makes me sad. Jason Sorensen's somebody I'm very fond of. Jason says, after checking in with the LP after 6 months of leaving, I didn't know you left, by the way. I'm not regretting my decision. I am really sorry to hear that you left, and I hope we somehow earn your trust to come back, Jason. Okay. So then she says, it's getting revised. And I go, can the APRC see the revised version? She goes, yes, it will be sent to the APRC. So it was basically getting completely rewritten. Well, she never sent the revised version to the APRC because she knew I would disapprove it again. And it went out. Now, it was substantially shorter. You guys can read the special investigatory report to see how bad it originally was. Like, no, what? The fact that anybody approved it, I'm sorry, shame on you. Shame on you, LNC members that approved it. Even though, like, I've made my peace with them. That's why I've been pretty careful to just say LNC members and not mention very many names. But seriously, dudes, like, no way. So the one that went out wasn't nearly as bad. However, I would have disapproved it because it had a link where you could support this cause. And that link was to an outside organization. Now, I did not know at that time this was Angela's organization, the Rescue the West. I just knew we didn't approve it, and it was supporting candidates of other parties. I didn't even know the full story, and I was going ballistic. I was going pyrotechnic. Those of y'all who don't think, and I know you might not agree with me all the time, just know my heart isn't trying to do what's right. And when I think I see what's right, I'm a frickin' bulldog. Like, there's a reason why D.L. Cummings called me the honey badger of the LP. Honey badger don't give a fuck. Look at that. Look at that. She's going into the house of bees. Honey Badger don't care. Thank you, Jason, for the super chat. So now Rescue the West is the big one now, isn't it? So the link that was on the LP email that used the LP property went to a website where the donation link was to a Give Send Go that was owned by bada bing, Angela McArdle. And it raised over what, $500,000?
Over $700,000 just from Kennedy PACs went back to Rescue the West. There was another close to, I believe, 500,000 or maybe 500,000 that came in through online donations.
Yeah,
Now
that's what
the
I meant. The
question,
Give Send Go. Yeah.
Give Send Go, yes, but there, and so when you add it all up, but just from Kennedy PACs, including the Kennedy Victory Fund, which gave $25,000 to it, it was over 700 grand. Now I know there was a comment up here, and I do want to get to that also, that Joshua had said from the Kennedy Fund, did Angela, and I'll tie it in here, did Angela receive money we can trace to her personal bank account or simply receive money to a PAC? We don't know. And that's something that we don't have access. You know, I'm not, even though Angela has falsely claimed that I am a Fed and that I have all this access or has turned me into the FBI now, we don't have access to her bank accounts. We don't know, but it is irrelevant. We know this money did go back to her organization, her PAC. And you know, what she did with the money after that point is irrelevant to the fact that it never should have happened. You know, I don't have to prove where she spent her personal money. If she, you know, once she deposits whatever into her personal account, it's irrelevant to the fact. This money
Yeah.
went where it should not have went to. And like the Freedom Calls, for example, that was money that went to her domestic partner that was not disclosed. Did it reach her bank account? I don't know, but it's irrelevant. And it's the same way with this Rescue the West, right? Did this money go to her bank account, even if a check or something gets, or an FEC filing lists her address on there? It doesn't matter where it went to. Is the fact is it was used to benefit her her organization. She used her position as chair to do that.
Okay, so this is what's interesting. So on October 18th, and this is when I was in suspended status. So she talks about needing to appoint an interim secretary, but then that's when she discloses, and I think that's when she got the first payment, wasn't it? From the, or was that swing vote strategist? I know there was some payment on October 18th, and the only reason why that sticks in my head is October 18th is my birthday. But I know there was a screenshot we looked at with some payment was on October 18th. But anyway, she says, I have a new PAC called Libertarian Unity. It's being used to raise funds for capital L Libertarian candidate videos. No, it wasn't. I don't know what's been done since then, but I haven't seen any. And then she said, some people are alleging that Rescue the Republic is a potential conflict of interest, which I disagree with. How can it not be? You are sponsoring an event to platform only other parties' candidates that were in direct competition with us.
Well, and now she admits, right, that she tried to hand the
Yes.
election to Trump. So, I mean, what a liar. What a liar. You know, and people can try to defend her all they want, her cult-like followers. She's admitted to what she's done, and you still don't believe her. Now, I know she's a known liar, but no, it's obvious what she did. And it's obvious. Now, the question is how far back this scandal goes. Did all this stuff get hatched whenever she first secretly met with RFK in 2023 at the Freedom Fest in Memphis? I think it was in Memphis, right? Or Nashville or somewhere. Did it get hatched then? Was it later on with Rick Grinnell? Was the Kennedy thing separate? Those are the questions that we really should be asking. We definitely know what she did. When did she get the idea? Who gave it to her? What did she know? And when did she know it?
And yeah, and put up Dave Davis. Thank you for the super chat. It says at minimum she did some blatant unethical shit. Yes, most it was definitely unethical. Whether all of this was legal or not, I think some of it was legal but unethical. I think some of it was illegal and unethical, because the two aren't necessarily the same thing. But she definitely violated every single duty she had to the nonprofit. Like you couldn't violate it. Well, I guess you could probably come up with a way to violate it more. But like she didn't just go, well, there was there's this anyway, I was going to get into like this dumb book that I read, but she was like, if I'm going to break this, the duty of loyalty, well, I might as well break the duty of obedience and the duty of due care and all of that. But to go back to something you had mentioned before, where you said, to your knowledge, an advisory opinion was never requested of the FEC regarding the Kennedy Victory Fund. Advisory opinions are public, so anyone could go search. There's no advisory opinion to this day on there. Now, was there one asked for that for some reason didn't make it up on the website? I don't know. I wouldn't know because, again, I excused myself from all those executive sessions, so I couldn't even possibly break an NDA here because I don't know any of that. But we know what's public, and FEC advisory opinions are made public on purpose so that other groups could kind of get a feel for what the FEC is, very much like legal bar association ethical opinions. And then here's where things get even squirrelier. She kept denying that the Rage Against the War Machine was connected. I mean, they used the same stage and everything. I was there, okay? It's the same signage and everything, but on the Rescue the Republicans, I am always going to call it that, site, it says, excuse me. Oh, and I got my Libertarian Party of Louisiana cup. What started as Defeat the Mandates, an historic idea to bring together the world's leading COVID-19 dissidents in the early days of the vaccine mandates, and Rage Against the War Machine in the wake of the Iranian conflict, has now become Rescue the Republic. But the LNC never approved joining Rescue the Republic. They only approved Rage Against the War Machine. She is the queen of deflection. And then she did admit it. So Nicole Shanahan says, I want to thank and puts in, I'm not giving her any followers, at Imbezabel for her leadership of the Libertarians. She steered support to President Trump and the unity movement. That's not your job as chair of the LP. I could perfectly respect if you had those convictions and you went off and did that. So she steered support to President Trump and the unity movement, and she's talking to Ross, and she made sure your release was made a priority. We are all grateful for Ross Ulbricht's release. That's never been a question. And she said, thank you. And so she is thanking her for steering support to President Trump. She didn't go, oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, we're so happy Ross is freed. I didn't steer support to President Trump, but thank you for all of your other kind words. She didn't, disavow this at all. And she says, team unity. In fact, she reinforces it. Team unity is here to stay. Okay. We're going to pull up some things here just so that people can see things, because sometimes unless they see them. Okay, so I put up Joshua Tom's comment. The timing of RFK Jr.'s political affiliation when this occurred, I'm not sure. I'm not trying to be squirrely at all here. I'm trying to be precise. I'm not sure what you mean by political affiliation. You mean his switch from Democrat to independent? That happened in 2023. So way before this, he switched to independent and remained independent. When we talk about irrelevant, we're talking about irrelevant to the ethics and violation of her duty as LNC chair. It is irrelevant to that. Certainly, you might personally think it's a greater personal moral wrong if it was, in fact, a slush fund. Or you might say that would make her violations of duties worse. but it is irrelevant to whether there was a violation of duty. You certainly can argue validly about degree of wrongness. It's irrelevant to whether it's wrong. I would agree to you that it is relevant to degree of wrongness, but that's not really what we're trying to establish.
And I reread Joshua's earlier comment too, and I think I may have misunderstood a little bit. I just want to clarify, I'm not 100% sure. He said, "Did Angela receive money we can trace to her personal bank, or is it simply receiving money to a PAC?" There's two things though. There's one that's the PAC, the Libertarian Unity, that received money from the Kennedy Victory Fund, and that's received a little bit of money. It's really not that much compared to the Swing Vote Strategist, though, which received $32,000, which was not a PAC. That is a company, an LLC that was in Delaware, that went back to her domestic partner, which was not disclosed. That she actually signed off on the invoices, and it later on came out was
And
her
use the
working
LP email, yes.
there and used the LP
She used
email.
both her personal and LP one.
So just to clarify, there's two things that have received money directly from the Kennedy Victory Fund. Well, actually three, because Rescue the West did as well. Now, what she did with that money, we don't know, but we do know the Swing Vote Strategist, for example, was never declared at all to the LNC that it was being a conflict of interest.
Yes, and Jocelyn says, I actually wanted to correct a little bit. So it says RFK Jr. didn't run for our nomination and didn't receive it. He actually did run for our nomination. He did. He said he wasn't, and then he got nominated from the floor. There was some scrambling going on, a big show of trying to call on the phone and all of this stuff. But he eventually did accept being nominated. So he didn't run for it, and in the way that the other candidates did. But you could say from the moment of time of him being nominated and accepting it till the time of the vote, I mean, those few hours he was technically running for our nomination.
And he certainly explored it before that. He flirted with the idea. This goes back to before when he spoke in California. So obviously before then, he was definitely considering it. I think they had statements from his campaign that said that he was considering it. I imagine they looked at the ground and realized that he couldn't. It was going to be a Lincoln Chafee repeat of 2020, right? If he tried this, it was not going to work. It was. And I don't think the Mises caucus, I don't think they could have got their members behind him. It just wasn't workable. And so he declined to, until a group of people showed up to nominate him. And then he accepted the nomination by phone call, I believe, with Chair McArdle on the convention floor.
Yeah, and we're going to put something from Joshua back up. He's saying that an LP chair supporting an unaffiliated candidate doesn't have the same ethical violations as supporting, say, a GOP member. I think it actually does. I don't think the category is tripartite as you're making it. I think it's binary. It's a partisan race. It's a partisan race. So you're either LP or you're not. Everything else falls in not LP.
But and that part also changed though whenever Kennedy dropped out to endorse Trump, and then that money that was going in was used for coordinating expenses to help Donald Trump too. So in August or whenever RFK Jr. dropped out to endorse Trump, that money started to go towards the Trump efforts.
Yeah, so he was exploring an LP run. And then he announced to the press way before if I'm remembering my timeline correctly, way before the Kennedy Victory Fund, that it was before that, because it was before convention, that he had ruled it out. And that's why even his nominators, one of his nominators on stage even said, I'm not even sure he's going to accept the nomination, because he had already ruled it out. He had spoke at the LP convention the night before, or 2 nights before. And when he spoke, he still had all the branding behind him of Kennedy Shanahan. Now remember, Shanahan was never even nominated at our convention. She did receive a write-in vote, though, along with O.J. Simpson and your mama. So that goes to show you the level of support. And Joshua, that's not a philosophical question. He was saying that distinctive. That's actually a bylaws question. That is actually the definition of a political party. Um, you're that's if you want to support candidates, if you're a partisan party, it's you and everybody else.
And someone also wrote in Courtney Love, and Jocelyn has
Yes.
long denied that that was her that wrote in Courtney Love, but I've had my suspicions that she put somebody else up to it.
And Joshua asked,
Joking
and I'm
on
going to
that.
put this on the screen, but we're not actually going to address it because it is going a bit afield and this could be a 4 hour long show. And I want to put up some stuff visually for people to see. Um, Joshua says, if RFK seeking an LP nomination does not justify at the very least a legitimate connection to him, not any more than it justifies a connection to Donald Trump, who actually asked for our nomination when he spoke at our convention. And he was in fact nominated, but didn't sign off on the paperwork or whatever. So no, that doesn't justify a legitimate connection to him. That not at all for support from the party. Now, if Angela had gotten up after Chase got the nomination, and or even before, because who knows what kind of discussions took place beforehand, and was honest with the delegates and said, like, if I don't care for how the presidential nomination comes out, I may throw some support behind Kennedy, or I believe that our candidate should drop out if we could get concessions, which all of this was in her mind because that's why she invited Trump there to begin with. There was that meeting at Mar-a-Lago, so none of this were thoughts that entered her mind after convention. She was not honest with the delegates. Now, if she was honest with the delegates and she was reelected chair anyway, well, I've often said this with some people who think I'm a bit too spicy. It isn't as if when I was elected before, I was a little church girl who never, what's it, drink or chew or hang with those who do. I wasn't one of those goody two shoes. And then I got elected and dyed my hair pink and started cussing like a sailor. Like, I'm the same person before and same person after. What you see is what you got. I didn't sell anyone on a fake package. In fact, I ran on being like kind of like belligerent about libertarian principles. Angela did not disclose her intentions to the delegates. But if she did and got elected anyway, there wouldn't be these violations because the delegates would have known. And even if after the fact, when Chase got the nomination, if she afterwards was honest and says, I'm not going to support him, the delegates would have had an opportunity at that point to suspend the rules and move to make a temporary bylaws amendment to do a recall of their previous selection of her as chair. But none of that happened. We had no idea. I could tell you, even as a Mises Caucus person at that time, I would not have voted for Angela had she been honest about this. And I did vote for Angela at convention. I was a Mises Caucus person. And in Colorado, we don't keep our vote secret, by the way. Like, we sign even at convention our ballots. I voted for NODA on the president's thing. I've been very, very open about that. Just like Chase Oliver's been very, very open that he did not vote for me as secretary. So we've both changed our minds. So Chuck says, under that theory, if Angela is reelected after embezzling, then embezzling is fine. Let me try to unpack this. This is getting a bit far afield. I don't think then it would be embezzlement. If someone tells you openly that they're going to pick your pocket and you say, okay, were you really stolen from? Or is that more like BDSM? Where it's consensual beating. I don't know. If she's reelected chair after past embezzlement, I don't think that makes embezzlement fine. But if she's reelected saying, you know what, I'm not going to promise you that I'm not going to do what I did before. In fact, I probably will. Then I don't think it's necessarily embezzlement because she is pretty open about it. I mean, maybe I'm just picking at philosophical nits here, but Joe,
there's an
sorry.
interesting thing too. If the delegates after the fact, if they were to come back in and vote Angela back in, the party's got worse problems than her embezzlement at that point. The party's dead if that happens.
Yeah.
So, you know, Austin Paget, she had hired him without board approval. The board allowed it to happen, so she kind of got away with it. Was it wrong? Yeah, it's wrong, but the board allowed it after the fact. It would be the same thing here. If they allow,
Yeah.
it doesn't make it right, but we have to move on at that point, though, because nothing would
Yes.
happen about it.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to show some visuals and then we're going to, if anyone has questions on pretty much the topic that we're trying to, I know I always meander a bit, please do stick them in chat. And then we're going to do our after show in which we're going to talk about Hector Roos's series. Coming up, in order to see the after show, you need to be a patron. It will be put on my Patreon at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. It will probably go up tomorrow because despite what Adrian says, I do in fact work and have a job that's in downtown Denver, which means I get up at 4 a.m. because I take a train. I loved when somebody said on Twitter, what's your obsession? Because I post pictures every morning. What's your obsession with Denver? Do you live there? And I posted, no, I just fly here every day, take a picture and fly home. Okay, so I want to try to get, if I can figure out how to do this. I want to pull up your LNC brief. Let me see if I can do this. Yes, looky here, and it kept us on the screen. So, in order to scroll, I don't see our screen, so let me know if it gets weird to anybody. But there's some interesting visuals here. So this goes back to the Colorado thing. So notice of executive committee. So she's at Freedom Fest trying to fundraise. So the executive committee meeting was on the 13th. This no, it's on the 11th, like I thought. Yeah, notice of executive committee meeting. Let's see here. So here's a visual. Here's Kennedy-based organizations. So there's the American Values PAC, the Maha Alliance, the Maha PAC, and the Kennedy Victory Fund. And these are Rescue the West and Liberty Unity PAC. Shows some transfers of money. And that's not even all of it because this was back in December and payments continued through March. But I also wanted to pull up the Special Investigatory Committee report and this because it is, I don't have a page up and page down really easily. I think I do over here. So there's some visuals here I want to show folks. It might be in yours. It might not be in here. So, there's the Freedom Calls thing. Okay, so that's the Freedom Calls payments. I think it might actually be in your report that I'm looking for. It is. Let's go back to yours where, yeah. Okay, so here's Rescue the West. And it shows that this is her DC corporation. There's the statement of organization for the Libertarian Unity PAC. There's Rescue the Republicans. And that link there led to a website that led to a link that the donate link was to her Give, Send, Go, which is right here, which is Rescue the Republic. And at that time, it had raised nearly $500,000. Obviously, it ended up raising more. This was never disclosed to the LNC. It wasn't disclosed that she was using the LP email list, which is a valuable asset, to funnel money to go to support opposing candidates. Okay. I don't know if there's any more visuals that we potentially need. There's, again, the Rescue the West. But here's where I read to you before. What corporation owns this? Who are its directors? So you can see I was raising a fuss early on. Actually, it was this link. This was also a link as well, because the email ended up getting substantially revised. The one I showed you earlier was the earlier email. Okay, so let me go back to here and see if I can undo the screen share. Yeah, no, we're back now. Okay. So there is, I mean, we're talking over $1 million. No, we're not saying it went to her personally. Like, she is like, Rescue the Republic wasn't a conflict because all of the money went to put on the event. That is not the point. You obviously thought you were getting a job with the Trump administration, which never came through, but that obviously would be a personal benefit. And you don't think those jobs are not given or promised as favors? Of course they are. And now you're getting flown out. Who knows where this money's coming from to do all of these Bitcoin conventions, and you're trying to get yourself this career in politics on the back of selling out the LP. All of those are huge conflicts. It doesn't mean, like, libertarians of all people should understand that you get other benefits other than monetary. And I do see your comment, Joshua, but we've dealt with this multiple times on the show. We're just going to have to agree to disagree, and you're wrong about the legal ones, because nonprofit directors actually do owe a legal fiduciary duty. I'm not going to comment on that much more because that's the subject of the Beth Vest lawsuit, and it was the subject of mine, which did get dismissed, and I don't mind discussing why I dismissed it. Is I thought, perhaps foolishly, there are a lot of reasons I'm not going to discuss, but there's certain ones that I can discuss publicly. Steve Nikela made a promise to me that he did not keep, that he would keep his pit bull on a leash, which is Adrian, who just continued to harass me, which is the reason, in fact, that I ended up resigning. It's like, I had enough of this shit. And also, I wanted to be part of seeking justice internally through the Special Investigatory Committee. And as long as I was in an active lawsuit with them, they would be perfectly justified in excluding me from meetings about it and all of that. I wouldn't have even have blamed them, because there would have been a conflict. In fact, I would have voluntarily recused myself from any executive sessions discussing the investigation if I was still involved in an active lawsuit. So I thought that I could do more good for the party, because a derivative lawsuit, when you're a plaintiff in a derivative lawsuit, if you win, you actually personally don't win anything. If it's monetary things that are being sought, it gets paid to the corporation. It's somebody standing in the shoes of the corporation to protect the corporation. I thought I could protect it better by dropping the suit. Do I second guess that decision all the time now? Yes, I do. Seeing how things turned out, yes, I do. If you're wondering why I have such rage against Nikela, it's because I counted on his promises and he didn't keep them. And do I think he didn't keep them because he's a bad person? No. That's what makes it worse. I kind of can understand a bad person being bad. What I don't have much tolerance for, which I think is pretty obvious by how brazen I can be, I don't have any tolerance for cowardice. And I think it's cowardice is why he broke his promises to me. He was scared of losing Adrian's vote, or perhaps scared of Adrian. I don't mean like that Adrian would beat him up or anything like that, but Adrian could be vicious. Like, I get it. I get it. He could be vicious. But Steve did not want to stand up to his boy. So Okay. And you lost the LNC, brother. The phone call is coming from within the house, and that's why I feel such anger, because it didn't have to be this way. So you could close us out, Jake.
Well, I'm going to say something that's a couple of things. One is going to be shocking. I actually don't believe that most people on the LNC are, I actually think most of them are good people. Good people caught up in something, good people that did things that were bad. I don't think they are bad people. And
I agree with you. Even people on the LNC now, sorry to interrupt you, that I disagree with, I absolutely agree with you. I think Adrian
and
was a bad person, but he's gone. I just don't know what happened with Kathy.
one of the
I
things that really disappointed me as I was going through all this stuff was knowing that the same people that were defending Angela were the same people that would be brought down by for corruption of what she was doing. And it was hard because they couldn't see that or they didn't want to see that. And the other thing, too, I think we should always apply what I call the Sarwark test. And this is here if you don't like Nick Sarwark, the easiest example would be if Nick Sarwark had done this, would I call it unethical, illegal, immoral, and would I oppose it? And if the answer to that's yes, then you shouldn't support it whenever one of our own side does that, one of your own side does that. And I think that's a real good test. If it's something that we often as humans overlook stuff that people that agree with us or we think agree with us have done. We've got a vested interest. We help put them in those positions. Um, we think that we've made the right call and we want to justify the call that we've made. Sadly, some people don't live up to those expectations, and some people turns out to be bad people and people we should disassociate from. When we continue to try to justify their behavior and defend them, we end up hurting the entire organization in this case.
I want
Which
to clarify something that Hody said, because I wanted to make sure we're not overstating our case, because I don't think we need to. Um, I think we're actually understating it, but I want to make sure here. Hody said this is so ugly. It is. The fact that the link was sent on those emails is really bad. Let me be clear. It was a two-step process. The link on the emails did not go directly to the Give Send Go. The link on the emails went to the Rescue the Republicans site, where there was a big opportunity to support, and that support link went to her Give Send Go. So it did require several clicks, but the Rescue the Republican site had Trump on the boat, the crossing of the Delaware with Tulsi Gabbard and Elon Musk, which Trump probably doesn't. That's fake news. And Brainworm are all on that. So I just want to be clear, because I don't need to overstate it. It was bad. It was bad enough as it was. And at that time, it was bad. Even if that wasn't Angela's Give Send Go, it would have still been bad. And Joe is correct. Let's do the Sarwark test. If Nick would have done this exact same thing as Angela, everyone defending Angela now would have been the loudest crying foul. Absolutely correct. Nick tried to get paid for being chair. I voted no on that, but he asked the LNC and he got skewered for that. But Nick was going to disclose, if I remember correctly, all the donors who were going to donate to that, but it never even passed. But like, he was putting it out in the open. And one thing I'll even say with Michael Heiss, when he was running for chair, he said he wouldn't disclose who his donors were, but he did at least put out in the open that he was going to be soliciting payment to be chair. And to be fair, Angela did the same thing. She has a Patreon, and she explicitly said, as she was running even, that she was seeking voluntary donations to be chair. Notice I haven't criticized her Patreon at all. In fact, I think the LNC messed up there because the Patreon was specifically to be able so that she could be a full-time chair. The LNC, including myself, should have demanded to know who the donors were. If it was a Patreon because she did political commentary, I wouldn't care. But it was specifically, or had a knitting channel or a family vlog, I wouldn't care. But it was specifically for her um, being chair. The LNC messed up. This isn't on her. This is on the LNC at the time. Should have asked to know who the donors were. I don't even think it would needed to be made public, but the LNC should have known who the donors were. And that's bad on the LNC. That's not bad on her. You notice I've never criticized her for her Patreon, because she was open about it. Always had been. I'm trying to think of what else. So now remember, like there is just so much. So you saw the monetary things. Now remember, during all of this though, they were going after me viciously. They can make up whatever other excuses they want to. Oh, I was mean on Twitter because I kept calling Angela dear leader. It turns out that was probably more accurate than I even knew, even though that's just a common snark for me with her recent culty posts. I was mean on Twitter. Meanwhile, she was calling me a domestic spy, and Adrian was saying all of this nasty shit. We all know why they went after me. They went after me because I turned in the nomination paperwork to the Secretary of State. They went after the secretary for doing the secretary's job.
For that and opposing the Joint Fundraising Committee. You were no longer in their cult. You were no longer, and they had to make an example out of you. That is why I say that people that are with them are more of an enemy after they leave than people, who never joined up. There's a reason that I still don't get the hate that you get. And I think that's the reason, is that I was friendly towards Mises, managed Jacob Hornberger's campaign. There was no animosity there. But I wasn't in the Mises caucus. So when I go against them, it's a little bit different than when you go against them. And and their thing was that, hey, we put you in this position. You owe us something now.
Yeah.
And that's the way they view it. It's transactional. You owe us. We put you there. You will do what we want.
And the funny thing is, again, this isn't to minimize. I always want to make this clear, because there's plenty I have to apologize for. I was in the caucus as a member, most definitely, but I was never in the inner circle. I did not. So a lot of people go, how could you not know? Again, go back to the Angela files with all those inter-caucus discussion, and you'll notice there's a couple people who are noticeable by their absence. And it wasn't that we didn't talk, it's that we weren't in that group. And that was me and Todd Hagopian. And there might have been, out of Mises people, obviously the non-Mises people weren't, because I was never in the inner circle. Though, just to be upfront, if they had asked me to be in that group, it's hard to look back into the past. I probably would have said no, because I had said no before, back on past LNCs when they had just friendly little group chat, messenger chats. Susan Hogarth will tell you that I left in a huff, one of them going, this is going to devolve into discussing business and it's not transparent, and and I huffed off, and there wasn't even any scandal going on.
Well, they also couldn't have talked bad about you had you been in that group, so there's a good chance they weren't going to invite you anyway. And
they were shit talking me like.
So that tells us that you weren't probably in that inner circle, which I knew, and it was horrible things that they said about many people in there. And what's interesting is how a lot of those people were their own supporters, but.
Yeah, and Jason noticed, and I didn't even know, Jason, that you weren't. Well, you said you left the party, but I don't judge people, even though it's getting increasingly hard as to whether they're a member of a caucus or not. There's a lot of people that I'm still friendly with, and I think are decent people that are still members. Now that she's chair, I'm finding it harder and harder, though, to maintain that position, because she was just so absolutely corrupt. I kind of could understand it more when Aaron Harris was still chair, But now that she is and what she's doing, I just don't get it. And I implore, because I know there are still some really good people and fantastic libertarians that are members. You need to bail out of that, brother. So Jason said the Mises Caucus has a terrible problem of using people and turning on them. I watch them do it to you and realize that will be me when I stop being useful. That is exactly right. I
And
mean,
that's their.
absolutely.
And I this is one of the things that really turned me off from Mises back several years ago. Was because I was watching that happen, right? When you were no longer useful, you did nothing for them, even though they would praise you whenever you were in the position, chair of a state or whatever. They would praise you until you turn against them on that. Could be even something minor. And then you are Judas to them. They don't want anything to do with you, and that you were a bad person working for the opposition. They make an example of you, and if they can, they will cut off your social circle within the party. And I watch this, and it's like with Angela saying now she doesn't want people to talk to the old guard. Well, if people start talking to the old guard, one, we could have warned them about Kennedy, because we've been there before. We've been there with Bob Barr, Wayne Allen Root. We've been there before. Bill Weld, we've saw it. The other thing that we could do is to realize that maybe we don't have as many differences as what they think. A lot of us old-time libertarians didn't have as many differences with many Mises members as what they were led to believe.
All right. So, yep. Yeah, what I was wrapping up with, so a lot of people think this started in January. No, it actually goes back to July. So I said this last show, my relationship with Angela was severed in the course of minutes over Colorado, where because it was on Discord with a disappearing chat, or I ended up deleting it because that's what I do. Like when there's unpleasant things, like I delete messages. Um, like when they're not needed for like legal purposes or something like that. I don't do spoliation of evidence, but I'm just talking about personal, excuse me, discussions. But there was just something about Colorado where I like, sure, we can talk, but you're not going to change my mind. And I think that's the last, like, friendly, if you even want to call that friendly, is the last private discussion that we ever had. From that minute on, I was the pariah. So I'll just say for now and for the future, there are going to be, there's things in the past that I regret. And there's going to be things in the future I regret. That's just the way things are. But I think I have a proven track record of pretty consistently, not perfectly, because I shouldn't have voted for Austin Paget's hire. I mean, even when it was done out in the open, I shouldn't have voted for it. I voted for it because I went with the herd. I mean, listen, I've done a lot of soul searching. I went with the herd, and I believe Angela's bullshit, but you can't blame other people. You got to take your own responsibility. I'm a grown ass woman. I went with the herd. But generally speaking, nobody is perfect. I'm going to do things you don't agree, not necessarily you, Jake, but just in general that you don't agree with. As long as I'm in this party, I'm going to do what I think is best. And not everyone is going to agree with it. And in the future, I might not always agree with some things I did. Like, for instance, I voted for Arvin Voga's removal. I regret that. I've apologized on this show multiple times for that vote. I could give all my reasons. I was a regional rep, blah, blah, blah. I needed to follow whatever. It doesn't matter. It was the wrong vote. I should have abstained. But just saying, in the future, there likely will be things that people don't agree with. I just hope that you trust that I firmly believe it's the right thing to do. And the minute I stop caring about this party is the minute I leave it. I'm going to give you a weird story, Jake. So I used to be I've done nearly everything in my life except for like I haven't killed anybody. I haven't done that. But I mean, I used to be a talk show radio host, literal talk show radio. I did that in Colorado too, but that's more where you had to pay for your block of time. But I mean, I did this in Florida. But what a lot of people don't know is that I was a bass player in a thrash metal band, and did that for my misspent youth in South Florida. Was in the local scene at the same time that Marilyn Manson was a local band, because they were from South Florida as well, and they were called Marilyn Manson. And the spooky kids at that time walked around carrying lunch boxes and the whole thing. But once my heart wasn't in doing that anymore, I was a bass player, by the way. I put down my bass, and I haven't picked it up again. I'm not like those people who like leave the church and then they spend the rest of their time starting atheist YouTube channels. That's not me. When I'm done with something, I'm done. You'll know that I don't love this party anymore. I don't believe that it's worth fighting for, or that I'm not doing what I think is right. Will be the day that I just say I'm done, and I'll leave and I won't look back. That's how I am. I was speaking with, I don't, these are personal discussions, so I won't want to say the person, but I was speaking with someone that people would probably be very surprised I was talking with, because I'm trying to build bridges wherever I can. And I said, I'm actually a really simple person. For one thing, I very rarely blindside people. That's how the removal vote went through in 2021, because I let them know that one of my supporters was leaving. So it's because I just am too honest or too forthright, or I don't hold cards close to my chest. So my actions sometimes can be surprising, but generally, if a situation is put before you and you're on a game show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and would Harlos do this or this? I think I'm pretty predictable. So, so I will contradict Nick Sarwark in the JC hearing when George Phillies appealed the grounds for my suspension, when the JC asked him, well, why didn't Ms. Harlos appeal this? And here's Nick. Hold on, I got to do my best Nick impression. Only Ms. Harlos knows why Ms. Harlos does what Ms. Harlos does. But that's not true. I think I am very, very predictable. You start supporting Republicans. Option A, she's going to be super chill about it. Option B, she's going to utterly lose her shit. Dude. Very, very predictable. Alex, I take B. The answer is she's going to utterly lose her shit. Okay. Anything else, Jake, before we do our thing where we're going to talk about the Roos Substack?
No, I want to thank everyone for the great comments and great questions, and thanks so much for doing this. And there's still a lot more that I think is going to come out in the future.
Yes.
Of things that have happened.
And we'll probably do some follow-up shows. I'm doing, this is going to be a whole series if people haven't gotten the Fear and Loathing on the, because I'm a big fan of crap, what was his last name? That journalist who did Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail in 1972, Hunter
S. Thompson.
Yes. And that was one of my first Patreon book go through. That was a fascinating book, by the way. So next Tuesday, can't remember what day it is. If you go to my channel, it's scheduled. Brittany Kazan and I are doing Fear, Loathing, and Harassment on the LNC. And because even though she wasn't on the LNC, she experienced something in an email chain, and she reported it actually to the Pennsylvania Press, and it got some traction. So we're going to be going over that, and you and I may have some follow-up shows as well. So anyone who wants to hear the after show and the very interesting observations, you and I might do future shows when Roos eventually comes out with next items in his series. So, but for that, for right now, I think we've got that. Oh, I know what else I wanted to close out with. So Angela is appealing some of the decisions that came out of the Special Investigatory Committee report. And what's so funny is that she mocks me constantly for Roberts, bylaws, and what's she appealing based upon? Some really, I don't want to say arcane, but definitely not Roberts 101, definitely advanced, intricate Roberts arguments to try to overturn certain LNC decisions. Hypocrite much, lady?
Well, and I like the defense is not that, oh, she's innocent of this. It's, oh, well, Robert's rules secretly, they didn't do something right, so a technicality will...
It is. It's a technicality argument. Now, do I think the appeal is wrong? Yes. But I will never, you'll never hear me denigrate, because it was Mr. Jacobs that filed that appeal, his abilities to make parliamentary arguments. I'm never going to do that. I think he's wrong. And I certainly hope the LNC wins that case. But it is just based on technicalities. That's all it is. And the fact is, the Special Investigatory Committee report is out. You can't put that ketchup back in the tube. I think I meant toothpaste. Ketchup doesn't come in tubes. Ooh, I'm not getting that image out of my head. So yeah, we'll probably be following that as well. So good night, everyone. We're gonna, and you stay on, Jake, because we're gonna record after the after show like I did. And if you guys want to see that, patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. Okay, let's do the closing sequence. And yes, Joshua, that is TJ Cousin's wife. All right, bye-bye.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business, not because they want to